I was the lone boy born in a village predominantly composed of girls after 2 decades. While you might think being the only boy in such a situation would be akin to winning the lottery, let me assure you, it came with its own unique set of challenges. Initially, it did seem like a fantasy with girls all around. But as time passed, the situation grew increasingly peculiar. You see, I hail from a small village in Eastern Europe where, for the past 2 decades, only girls had been born. The reason behind this unusual phenomenon remained a mystery, though many in our village believed it to be the result of a curse from a witch whom they had expelled long ago. In my perspective, it felt more like a divine punishment for our ancestors' actions in banishing her. To make matters even more complex, our village had strict rules against marrying outsiders. So the moment my parents discovered I was a boy, they swiftly wrapped me in a blanket and concealed my true gender. They told everyone I was a girl named Sam, though in reality, my name was Samuel. It might seem peculiar, but my parents had no other choice. They understood that revealing my true gender would stir up chaos since no one in our village had witnessed the birth of a boy in over 2 decades. My parents simply wished for me to have a normal life, even though it was far from typical. I, too, embraced this facade, blissfully playing with dolls, donning frilly dresses, and responding to the name Sam. In fact, I wasn't even aware that my real name was Samuel until I turned 5 years old. It was during one of my outdoor play sessions in our backyard when a woman suddenly appeared on the other side of our wall, forever altering the course of my life. She dangled a tempting piece of candy in front of my face, and like an eager puppy, I followed her. Glancing back repeatedly, I anticipated my parents rushing out to retrieve me, but they remained out of sight. She coaxed me to get into her car, promising more candy if I behaved well. Without a second thought, I complied. My parents had never allowed me to indulge in candy, but then I realized she had referred to me as a good boy. I turned to her and corrected, "I'm a girl." The woman responded with a hearty chuckle, her head thrown back, and remarked, "Of course, pumpkin, and I'm the President of the United States. Oh look, there's a flying pig." I fell for her trick and turned to see where she pointed. In the blink of an eye, she lifted my dress and exclaimed, "See? You're a boy, you little trickster." I was utterly perplexed, not comprehending her words. She proceeded to clarify that I was indeed a boy and that my parents had deceived me. Then she revealed a sinister plan. The mayor of our village was offering a reward to the first woman who gave birth to a son. And since my parents were concealing my gender, she intended to turn me in and claim the reward for herself. Though too young to fully grasp the implications, I sensed I was in grave trouble. Panic overcame me, and I began to scream and flail my arms, inadvertently urging her to accelerate. In a moment of impulsiveness, I jumped onto her lap, obstructing her vision. Our recklessness led to a crash that could have been disastrous, but I didn't care. All I wanted was to escape from that dreadful woman. Miraculously, her car was only slightly damaged, and I emerged unscathed. I sprinted back towards our village with her in pursuit, but my speed outmatched her efforts. Suddenly, my parents' car appeared on the scene, and my mother burst into tears at the sight of me. Well, that woman was left with no recourse. She had become thoroughly ensnared in the situation. It emerged that she had escaped from a nearby mental hospital, and authorities promptly arrived to retrieve her. Faced with the undeniable truth, my parents had no choice but to inform the mayor and the entire village that I was indeed a boy, and my true name was Samuel. I prefer being called Sam. I voiced my preference, but it only prompted my mother to shed more tears. When my attire shifted to shorts and t-shirts, it felt unfamiliar. I feared that no one would want to be my friend anymore, but I couldn't have been more mistaken. Suddenly, every girl wanted to be my friend. I found myself at the center of attention, and to be honest, it was overwhelming. I was just a child, and all of a sudden, girls flocked around me, eager to play with me incessantly. I couldn't comprehend why I had become more popular as a boy than I ever was as a girl. As I grew older, the intensity of the attention only increased. When I reached the age of 12, the village mayor introduced a new tradition. On each of my birthdays thereafter, I was expected to sit on a throne for the entire day. All the women who wished to conceive boys would come and kneel before me, one by one, kissing my feet. It frightened me tremendously, but the mayor assured me that if I performed this one act for the village, he would reward me with a special gift. However, one year, things went too far. A woman became so enthralled that she couldn't stop kissing my toes, and suddenly, I felt an excruciating pain surging through my body. She had become so carried away that she had actually bitten me, causing me to bleed. After that incident, I refused to participate in the ritual the following year. It seemed like nothing more than a senseless tradition believed by the village to bring them good fortune. But frankly, it had proven ineffective as I remained the only boy. By the time I turned 18, I decided that the best way to cope with the overwhelming attention was to embrace it. There was one girl named Aria who caught my attention. She was quite attractive. After weeks of her persistent pursuit and what felt like borderline stalking, I eventually agreed to be her boyfriend. This decision, however, ignited a fierce jealousy among the other girls, and I feared I might inadvertently spark World War III among them. It seemed Aria had triumphed, and I found myself genuinely developing feelings for her. One evening, she invited me to her house while her parents were out. Things took an amorous turn, and we began making out passionately. Aria reassured me that her parents wouldn't return home until much later. However, an unexpected sound reached our ears, the front door opening. In a hurried panic, I left the sofa, only half-dressed, as things took an unexpected and disheartening turn. Aria's parents had returned, and their reception was far from what I had imagined. They addressed me callously, asking, "So how's it going? Did you manage to conceive a child yet?" "Aria, we're not paying you all this money just for you to lounge around. Give us a grandson already." I was taken aback. It became evident that Aria had used me as a pawn in her family's efforts. I stood up, directing my anger at her parents and then turning to Aria, exclaiming, "Screw you. I hope you have a girl." With that, I hastily gathered my clothes and walked out, vowing never to see her again. However, life had more twists in store, as Aria later suffered a miscarriage when she fell down the stairs. To everyone's astonishment, it was revealed that Aria had been pregnant with a boy. This revelation sent shockwaves through the entire village, further intensifying the madness surrounding me. Women lined up outside my house throughout the day, some even attempting to enter my home. My phone was inundated with requests for my number and social media contacts. To ensure my safety, security personnel were hired to keep watch over me. At that point, I decided to adopt a screw-it attitude. In response to how Aria had used me, I resolved to get back at her by dating as many girls as I could. Girls were essentially vying for my attention, while guys around the world were performing extraordinary feats to capture the interest of girls. I proceeded to date several girls simultaneously, and they went to great lengths to please me. They pampered me with delicious food, treated me to soothing massages, and showered me with gifts every day. I mean, we all understand how much fun a guy like me can have with girls like them. They were undeniably attractive and incredible. And the best part? I didn't have to put in any effort for it. However, there were considerable expectations attached to it all. Every one of them yearned for sons, but I wasn't prepared to step into fatherhood just yet. Babies weren't exactly my thing. I tried discussing my feelings with my mother, but unexpectedly, she broke down in tears. I bluntly expressed my disinterest in hearing about her desire for another grandchild. However, her response took me by surprise. She confided in me, revealing that she was unwell and didn't have much time left. All she wanted was for me to find happiness. Guilt weighed heavily on me. Was I being selfish? Couldn't I simply grant my mother's wish, which was evidently a grandchild? Following our conversation, I approached Sarah, our neighbor, and asked if she would like to be my friend. I made her promise to keep it a secret to prevent jealousy among the other girls. Time was against us. My mother's health was deteriorating, and Sarah and I were struggling to conceive. Then, I had an idea. What if I had another girlfriend? I couldn't determine whether it was the fear of losing my mother without fulfilling her wish or if I was simply losing my mind. Nonetheless, I approached Eleanor, who lived at the far end of the village, and proposed the same idea. Remarkably, she agreed. I hope you won't judge me for having two relationships. I was just desperate. However, things took a dramatic turn. The universe seemed to have a twisted sense of humor. Both Sarah and Eleanor contacted me on the same day, revealing that they were pregnant. Sarah, a devout Catholic, insisted that her parents would be livid unless we got married. So we held a quiet ceremony at home to tie the knot. Soon after, Eleanor informed her father about her pregnancy, and he issued a menacing threat, promising to confront me physically if I didn't marry his daughter. Faced with such a dire situation, I realized I had no real choice. But was it even legal to have two wives? Regardless, I decided that no one needed to know the truth. Everything unfolded within the same week, and before I knew it, I had 2 wives and 2 impending arrivals. Eleanor's father offered me a job on his farm, which meant I spent my days with Eleanor. Then every evening, I returned home to Sarah. Can you believe I managed not to get caught? My parents were aware of Sarah, but I fervently prayed they wouldn't discover Eleanor's existence. I wasn't content with the situation. In truth, I felt nothing for these girls, and I was convinced that the truth would eventually come to light. And it did. Both Sarah and Eleanor gave birth to boys. I was present for Sarah's delivery, but I had to rush over to be with Eleanor for hers. A new round of the mayor's ridiculous ceremonies awaited, but there was no way I could attend without exposing my double life. I packed a small bag, bid my mother farewell, and hopped on my father's old bicycle. I pedaled out of the village, as far away as I could get. I rented a modest room in a budget motel, but soon my disappearance was reported on every social media platform. The entire village was on a hunt to find me. I tried my best to disguise myself as someone else and began working at a nearby grocery store. Time passed, and no one succeeded in locating me. Eventually, I made male friends my age, which was rather enjoyable. To be perfectly honest, I had also been missing my family all along. I was consumed by fear regarding their potential reaction if I were to return, so I kept my distance. However, one day, a full year after my departure, a knock at the door jolted me from my solitude. It was the motel manager, standing there with my 2 wives, who had tracked me down. He uttered, "These women are looking for you." My instinct was to run away, but then I noticed that they were holding 2 adorable little boys. My 2 wives addressed me, saying, "We want you back. We don't mind sharing you, but if it's too much, you can choose one of us." Despite my past reservations, I couldn't resist the pull of my 2 boys, and the realization that my village needed me to father more children was a heavy weight on my shoulders. Both of my wives were remarkably understanding and accommodating, so I made the decision to remain married to both of them. As time passed, I even added a 3rd wife to our family. Today, I take pride in being the father of 10 boys.